And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and those of you still on the fence and figuring things out, we are back with another episode of Derailed, courtesy of Arcaicskidz. I am your host, Arcaicskidz, and we have Rex Lawhorn back on the show today. What's going on, Rex?
Not much. How are you doing, Austin?
Man, I'm doing great. So we're going to talk about your farm. You're not just being a libertarian, you're living libertarian. So that's going to be the focus of our conversation. But before we do that, why don't you tell everyone just up front what it is, who you are, what you're about.
All right. Liberty Mountain Farms is a 19.79 acre homestead down in the Ouachita Mountains here in Oklahoma. It was raw native land, and we are taking it from the bare bones to become a fully sustainable, self-reliant ecosystem where we can feed ourselves, energize ourselves, water ourselves, take care of all of our needs that we possibly can take care of right there on the farm without having to interact in the economy. We're doing everything we can to be as much of an agorist community as we possibly can.
Right on. And is there any opportunity at some point that you're going to be looking to set up a website where people can order anything from you, or are you just staying out of the economy full scale?
No, we've got Liberty Mountain Farms. We've got the domain registered, but we don't have any products to offer on there yet, so we haven't taken the time to offer a website. We've got products that we put up on Etsy, as we've been able to put some stuff up last fall. It's also Liberty Mountain Farms and Beautiful Life by Victoria. My partner's kind of got her own brand. Her middle name is Ikimi, which is Japanese for beautiful life.
Nice.
So her whole Beautiful Life brand, and you know, part of our mission up there on the farm is creating a beautiful life for ourselves, where all of our efforts and all of our labor is going to be something that we get to enjoy the full rewards of. So it fits right along in with the theme.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That is awesome. So we've got your Patreon running across the bottom. People can follow you there. Everything's in the description, including Rex's Twitter. You definitely want to hit him up, follow him there. Unless you don't have a Twitter, then don't get one, because it's a hellscape over there. So, well, Rex, we're gonna get into the farm and what you got going on there. That's gonna be our main subject. But prior to doing that, old Joe Biden has come out yesterday with all kinds of nonsense he wants to do. Bunch of new racist gun laws. That's my message. That's what I'm just harping. All gun laws are racist, you know, kind of par for the course for Democrats. But anyway, so he wants nationwide red flag laws. He wants to ban AR-15 pistols. There's a whole bunch of nonsense. A lot of the text hasn't come out, so currently we're just going on hyperbole of what he was talking about. Some of the things he did is just lie flat out to the American people. That's not odd for a politician to do. One of those lies was that you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. This man has a law degree. 1969, the U.S. Supreme Court made it more than clear. Yes, you can. That's not true. He he said constitutional amendments are not absolute. So I basically at that point decided, oh, this is a good time to tweet out that I'm no longer paying federal taxes, and I'm currently taking applications for new slaves because apparently they're not absolute. So, you know, we just kind of wing it, I guess. What are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts are no conditions, no compromise. The wording of the Second Amendment was put out there specifically to indicate a well-regulated militia. Now, I know how they try to interpret that these days to mean, well, you know, if you're National Guard or whatever. That is not what they were talking about by any stretch of the imagination. They didn't even conceive of a world where individual states were going to be putting together an army to defend their individual states. That's not.
And there wasn't a standing army that was constitutionally allowed. So a National Guard wouldn't make any sense.
Exactly. So when they were talking about a well-regulated militia, they were calling for each and every able-bodied citizen to have your arms. You were to be armed, and by well-regulated, they meant you were to be well-educated in the use of your arms, because if your country needed you, you needed to be ready to fight.
Right.
if a king came in and tried to take over, you needed to be ready to fight. A well-regulated militia is every citizen of the United States having army style arms, munitions of whatever they needed to fight any foreign invader or domestic invader.
Yes.
And there is no equivocation on that. There is no legal scholar, there is no justification that can hold any water that can deny the simple fact that shall not be infringed means shall not be infringed. That's all there is to it. There's nothing else.
And I like to point out to people that of all the amendments to the Constitution, including the first amendments in the Constitution 1776 Bill of Rights, both the two obvious documents, it is the only amendment that ends with shall not be infringed. It's almost like they wanted to point that out.
Well, it is specifically. I mean, if you look at the history of the Bill of Rights, it was put together with the intention of the first two amendments were put in there. This is how the people are to defend themselves. One, you are supposed to be able to speak. That is the most important thing. You've got to have a voice in your government. That means voting. That means protesting. That means redressing your grievances. If and only if that fails, you are obligated to take up arms to alleviate the situation that created the loss of your First Amendment rights.
Right.
So that is why they are positioned the way they are. If you cannot use your words, you are to resort to self-defense. You are to do whatever it takes to restore the natural state of the human being, and that is liberty.
Yeah. If you read a lot of the founders' papers, and I don't just mean the Federalist Papers, but a lot of their personal diaries, they actually had quite a few arguments over which one should be first.
Right.
The freedom of speech or keep and bear arms. They didn't know which one was most important, and they concluded that the best option was a peaceful option. Yes. But there had to be a backup if peace didn't work. Yes. And I think it's important that people know the history of those conversations and why they took place the way they do and how it ended. Also, the Second Amendment, the first draft of the Second Amendment said with or without conscription.
Yes.
And they decided to take that out because they didn't want people to be like, well, I don't have to join the military, even if you tell me to,
Right.
So that was their point, was like, well, if we need a militia, like, we're going to need one. And they took out the with or without conscription, but their absolute intent was the people, 100% to own anything they wanted.
And that's the other thing that people have forgotten, is the fact that the Bill of Rights isn't there to describe the rights that the government is giving you. It is an affirmation of the natural state of humanity. It is the affirmation of liberty. It is the confirmation that we, the American people, live in a state of liberty. And, that's another thing that they've twisted around, is like, well, the government gives you these rights. No, the government didn't give us a damn thing.
It says it in the Constitution.
Right.
The government didn't know. Their job is to protect those rights. That's apparently they're like, no, we dictate them. No, that's a privilege. That's not a right.
Yes.
One of the things, and we'll finish up on this. I want to get your thoughts on it. And this is going all over social media, is when the founders wrote these documents, it took 1 minute to reload a gun. Okay, muskets is what they're getting at, right? And so basically they're saying, well, your rights only extend to these weapons that were less lethal. Well, they're actually extremely lethal if you got hit with one, but they were, they took longer to reload. I mean, these are people that obviously don't know history, because first of all, you were allowed any weapon of the current time. It was stated in many different papers between the founders. One privateer wrote a letter to Thomas Jefferson asking him, like, well, can I have cannons on my merchant ship? And he said, of course you can. Why couldn't you? You have to be able to defend your wares.
That's right.
So we had privateers. These people had warships. Private individuals had warships. It's just a fact. But we had puckle guns. We had cannons. So to think that, oh, well, only muskets, but yet they don't understand that, okay, then I suppose your First Amendment right only concludes to standing on a street corner and screaming into the wind, or writing it down on parchment with a feather.
Right.
Because we didn't have digital media then either, and social media. We didn't have that. So how did they first of all, how do they come to that ideology? And second of all, what would your answer to that be? That you all can, well, basically kiss my ass. I can have whatever I want.
Well, that would kind of be my answer to them. So, look, it's the simple fact of what we've been talking about already, that people have forgotten what the intent was, what the purpose was of these bills. And they say, you know, they're like have a very limited, narrow vision that only goes one layer deep. It's like the Second Amendment says, shall keep and bear arms. It was written in the time of muskets, so it's only for muskets.
Right.
But what they're neglecting was the entire function of the Second Amendment. It's not to let you carry a firearm. It's to let you defend yourself. And
I don't know what keep and bear means to them, but that sounds to me like carry.
Yeah, I cannot understand the logic behind it, especially with the people that speak with such extreme conviction that, you know, there is no Second Amendment that lets you carry an AR-15, because the entire fundamental basis behind it was is that you needed to be armed equally to somebody that might be coming against you.
Exactly.
And what they were worried about at the time was not a foreign invasion. They were worried about England trying to come back and kick their ass.
Mm-hmm.
So they were more along the lines of anything that England has got, you need to have also, because that's who you're going to be fighting. They were worried about the French, and they were worried about the Germans, and they were worried about the French-Canadian Native American alliance, and they were worried about the Spaniards, and they were worried about all of the privateers that were down in the Caribbean. You know, it was all about being able to defend your home and defend your land against any threat that may come against you and try to strip you of your rights.
Both foreign or domestic.
Foreign or domestic. And that goes with the idea that technology advances. It wasn't worded, you are allowed to keep and bear a musket and a cannon. It
Right.
was you were allowed to keep and bear arms. That's because they had the foresight to know the technology was growing by leaps and bounds, and that any situation where a foreign agent might come in with napalm, you need to be able to defend yourself against napalm. So if you wanted to put up some type of futuristic heat shields from the Starship Enterprise to keep that stuff off your land, you should be allowed to do so.
Right.
And I mean, people don't grasp the fact that this isn't about being aggressive. This doesn't give you the right to go out and shoot up a crowd. It gives you the right to defend yourself and your land and your home and your loved ones and anyone that asks you for help defending their land, their home, their loved ones. So it doesn't matter what they think. I don't care what they think. And this is the answer. The second part of your question is I don't give two shits what those people have to say. I don't care what the state has to say. I don't care what the United States government has to say. Before Oklahoma had constitutional carry, I was campaigning for governor, walking around with a sidearm on my hip because I don't give two shits what the government has to say about my right to defend myself. And there's nothing we're going to do to prevent that, ever.
Well, that right doesn't come from them, and they can't do anything about it. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And then I know that I said that was going to be the last one, but I just have to touch on this just because it came back into my mind. The sociopath, and I mean that 100%, that Joe Biden has tapped to lead the ATF is, I mean, I tweeted out that if Republicans do not block this psycho from running the ATF, they should resign from their posts as cowards.
Absolutely.
Because this guy is a literal psychopath. I mean, straight up serial killing psychopath.
It's kind of scary because if you look at the people who seek positions like law enforcement or political power, run for president, run for vice president, any of those high-level positions, seek cabinet appointments, they tend to have the same psychological profile as psychopaths and sociopaths.
Well, CEOs are the same way.
Yes, yes. They all have the same mentality. The difference is that, and it's even worse because these people think they're doing it for good. They think they're doing it for the right reasons. And that's even scarier because they're not just motivated by some deep-seated mental illness. They're deep-seated by a sense of righteousness. It's the same type of thing that caused the Crusades. the Spanish Inquisition. And that's the type of people that have been seeking office and actually achieving office lately. And that's the same thing with our law enforcement officers.
We can go back to the Alevite time when the Muslims did it to the Christians. Same thing. It was righteousness. I mean, that's what it always is. We're right. We're doing the right thing. I mean, you can take that to Nazi Germany. A lot of them thought they were doing the right thing.
Yes.
I mean, it's terrifying when crazy people get put in charge. Now, on that, that's very interesting that you said that, because I 100% agree with you. But once in a while, one of them slips in that I have to acknowledge. And someone said, because I have said this plenty of times, like on Twitter and social media, that only sociopaths run for office, or high level office. And obviously that's hyperbole, because I know there are some really great people that do.
Governor, man, it was
yeah. They just those people, those decent people. Nah, they're going to do everything in their power to block you, because the sociopaths kind of run the show,
Yes.
But someone asked me on Twitter the other day. They said, "Oh, okay, so if that's the way you believe, can you name anyone in Trump's cabinet?" And I'm going to present this question to you the way it was presented to me. Can you name anyone in Trump's cabinet that took a position of I guess high authority that you would not see as that you would actually say, yes, this person is doing this job because they think that they can bring more good to the world or to the country?
I can think of a single cabinet member, and it comes right off the top of my head, and it's because he's from my home state. Representative Jim Bridenstine was a representative from the state of Oklahoma. He was a fundamentalist Christian, retired combat veteran pilot. And he took up the head of NASA because he believed that space exploration is the future of mankind. So while it's necessarily a cabinet position, it is a high-level position of authority. It's a promotion from being a representative to your state. So I would say that Jim Bridenstine had the correct intentions in his heart when he took the office. But then some of the stuff that he voted for while he was still a representative, he's still in that same category with the rest of them, as far as I'm concerned. He was just
I only had one. He wasn't on my list. I didn't actually know. I knew he wound up at NASA. I didn't know where he was from. Mine was Dr. Ben Carson.
Ben Carson was a good one as well. He was one of my early picks for the Republican nomination when he ran. If
I would have had my rathers, he would have been the guy.
Yes, me too. He was absolutely first pick.
This is a guy that for his entire life has only basically helped people.
Yes. And started from nothing.
Yeah, I'm like, did you ever see the interview where he said that he walked to school with no shoes on?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, this is the American story that you should be putting forth, especially if you're the Republican Party. That's like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Homie didn't have boots.
Dude, if Ben Carson would have been their nominee, it would have fundamentally changed the Republican Party for the better.
Yeah,
Libertarian Party had a lot of trouble with him being their nominee, simply because Ben Carson espoused a lot of our beliefs. He's still a statist, but he was a statist that we could get behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's comparatively to everyone else on that stage, he was the only one that it was like, if this dude gets a nominee, I'll absolutely vote for him.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I'm like, I mean, dude, come on. Unfortunately, he didn't. And I know he'll never run again. And we can't drag him over to the libertarian side and educate him where he was wrong. Sometimes I think that there's opportunities there. I know a lot of the libertarian parties trying to pull Justin Amash. They're trying to pull Tulsi Gabbard. I think there's opportunity there. I just think you're kind of maybe wasting their time a little bit.
In Justin's case, he was probably going to lose the Senate seat regardless, even if he stayed in the Republican Party. I think that he was absolutely a good grab, because he has been pushing for libertarian ideals even under the GOP.
Yeah, for
He's
like 10 years. He's
yeah,
stuck to it.
yeah. I've got the utmost respect for Justin Amash because he's been walking the walk.
Yeah.
Not so much with Rand Paul. Thomas Massey better than Rand Paul, but Justin Amash, he's been true blue. He's been more libertarian than a lot of libertarians I know. So
True. I like Thomas Massey. I think he's pretty good. He walks the walk pretty good.
yeah,
I like Tulsi on like 65% of the stuff. Like, I don't know. I'm just, whatever. That doesn't matter. Rand Paul just got endorsed by Donald Trump. So I'm like, man, what is happening?
yeah.
I kind of wonder if he ever goes to Texas and lets his dad smack him in the back of the head, because that'd be funny. You know what I mean?
Rand Paul, he stood up there for so long by himself that he
you think he just got wore down?
Yeah, I think he resigned himself a little bit. This is the way things are. I'll take the wins where I can get them, but I'm not going to keep wasting political capital on battles I can't win, sort of thing.
Which is almost all of them.
Yeah.
Anything of value, you're probably not going to win.
Right. Anything that really matters.
Mm-hmm. That's really sad. All right, well, let's jump out of politics and let's jump into farming, sustainable farming. You're not just a libertarian. You're showing us how it's done, man. You're showing us how to get it done. So tell me, let's start at the beginning. What got you inspired to do this, and then how did that journey go to where you are now?
So here's the thing. I've been low income for most of my life, right? Gardening has always been a primary source for food. It's been a source of good food, I guess I should say.
Right.
Instead of whatever you can find in Walmart in the discount shelf.
I love my summer garden.
Yes. So I have always had, I was raised to be more on that self-reliance thing.
Mm-hmm.
But with the political climate, we've just been talking about some of it. With the way things are going, it's just I less and less want to be involved in the society that the Republicans are trying to create. And, the people, they have become so polarized and they've gotten so outside of that mainstream. There's no desire for cooperation or community anymore among society at large. So, I've always kind of wanted to go find my little hideaway, my little retreat in the woods and just, do what I can do to get by and just try to find some happiness out of life, some self-satisfaction, some purpose. And then when I was running for office, I came across Victoria, who came to work on my social media. Goodness.
Hey, let me mute my mic. My dog's barking like crazy.
And then, so Victoria and I, she kind of had the same ideas out there. She wanted to get in an RV and tour. And we've both grown a lot in the last 3 or 4 years in our libertarian walk. And, agorism had always been something that was in our heads, but it was not something that was actually mainstream or something that we thought about. But then we got together, and it was like the first weekend that we were together, we went and started looking at land. And we were looking for 5 acres, 10 acres, but we came across these 20 acres. And, it was ideal. It's situated on the top of a mountain out in the middle of nowhere. It's got high average annual rainfall. It's got high average days of sunlight, high average sunlight per day, which I guess the two kind of go hand in hand. So it was kind of ideally situated for us to be able to put together something where we can generate our own electricity, our own water, and it's enough land that we can grow our own food. So we started doing research about the different things, and we're going to have a wide diversity of things. We're going to get chickens first. We're going to have rabbits. We're going to have ducks. We're going to have sheep. We're going to have wool sheep, so we can also get the wool. We're raising American chinchilla rabbits so that we can have the fur and the meat off of them. They're both excellent breeds for that. Our garden right now is only about 25 by 25 feet, but we've already started clearing down in the market garden. It's going to be about 200 feet long by about 75 feet wide. And we're going to be raising as many different crops and varieties of things as we possibly can. just to have them there for an example. We're going to utilize solar power first. We're also going to add wind power. And we've got several places that are ideally suited for putting up displays of hydropower. It's never going to be truly functional for our farm, but we at least want to be able to show people how to do it. And we've set aside about 7 acres of our land that we're going to put together a conference center, a barn dominium that we're going to be able to host people to come out and learn how this is done, see how easy it can be done, to gather the skills that they need to get the self-confidence so that they can go out and do this for themselves. Because I firmly believe that the only way that our society is ever going to revert to an idea of community and self-reliance is when we stop relying on the government to provide us everything. So the more people that
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
So I've got just a small little 1.6 acres here, and when COVID hit back in, when they started to like talk about it and take it a little more serious back in March, I talked to the wife and I told her, hey, you know, I don't buy this 15-day nonsense. I think it's going to be a little wonky. And so one of the things that I did is I got some chickens. So I have 10 chickens now, which lay way too many eggs. And it's a nightmare to try to deal with that and get rid of them. Even giving them away is problematic sometimes.
Yes.
And then I got me 3 pigs. So I'm raising 3 pigs. I live in the county. So for those of you in the city, I apologize if this doesn't really work for you. But so that was one of the things that I did, because I just saw that, like, man, shit's going to get wacky. Like, it's not going to be 15 days. It's going to be a lot more than that. And I mean, here we are a little over a year now. Where I live, they had these like stupid coded things, but it was like, you can open up to this much, this much, this much. And it was like color coded. And we made it up to like this new color. And then now all of a sudden they're like, oh, no, your test results are too bad. And they downgraded us a color. You know what I mean? So yeah. All these businesses are playing this stupid flip-floppy game with the government right now. So what you're doing, I like, because you're just bounced out. You're like, nah, I'm not doing any of this nonsense. Like, what would you say to people that live in a metropolis? People that don't have that opportunity, maybe they can't afford it, maybe they, or maybe they don't know how to do it. What would you say to them, like, as far as to get them to understand that, like, look, guys, the government only has the power you give them, and you can take that power away from them by just not being involved. Don't participate.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And you know, we came from metro areas. She came from Los Angeles, Riverside County out there.
Oh, good God, that is metro.
Yeah. And, you know, I was living up in Tulsa, and we got to the point and this was before COVID and everything, but, you know, the economy was already starting to do the wonky thing back there in 18, the mid-cycle, trade wars, the tariffs with China really put a hindrance on my job because of the cost of steel went up 25%. And, you know, there were a lot of factors taking place. She's an accountant. She can work pretty much anywhere. But it's the same sort of situation. Every business was starting to suffer at that point in time. And it's like, why are we killing ourselves trying to work ourselves around a corporation? We've got 20 acres down there. Let's just bounce. And that's what we did. We packed up our shit and we moved. We disappeared. For the people in the metro areas that are like, oh, we can't do that. We've got kids. Our kids are in school or whatever. You know, 37
states. Your kids.
Yeah. 37 states now have passed legislation that funds kids instead of the schools. Homeschooling is absolutely a viable option. If you don't feel capable of doing that, the internet has got tons of wonderful resources out there that will help you do that. There are entire companies centered around putting together a curriculum and providing one-on-one education and tutoring for your child in the areas that you're not capable of doing. And people want to be they want to stay in their metro area because they want to stay in Oklahoma City, or they want to stay in some of these other medium-sized metro areas, fine. You don't have to go the full route, but there's a lot of things you can do. In Oklahoma, we have net metering. You can put solar on your house and completely eliminate your electrical bill, where you are not paying a single penny for your electricity. You can put a garden in your backyard. Most cities allow you to have some type of game animal as long as they're quiet. Most of them here in Oklahoma even let you have chickens. Um, there are a lot of different things that you can do, and you don't have to go the full route. If you don't feel educated or confident enough in doing it, you don't have to go big. You can start small. Go on YouTube, watch 3 or 4 videos on how to raise chickens. They'll tell you exactly how to build your chicken coop, exactly how much space they need. If you get a chicken, you got 3 chickens in your backyard now, and all of a sudden it's got a big old bowl on its foot. Go to YouTube. My chicken has a bowl on its foot. You're going to find 50 videos of people telling you very simple treatments on how to take care of that. Lance it, wash it out, put it on some baking soda, wrap it up, and let them loose.
Do you think that's part of the issue, is that people don't realize how much information's out there for free?
Oh, I think that's 100% the issue. If people knew how free they could be, they would absolutely take the opportunity to do it. It's just everything right now is a matter of convenience, right? It's either provided by the state or it's provided by Walmart.
Right.
So, they don't have that personal relationship with their food, and they don't understand how much they're damaging their own lifestyle and their own health, because you're not eating quality food. You are eating bacteria-laden, pesticide-laden, chemical-laden food. And
Right.
It's causing medical issues in your life. It's causing your children to have medical issues. It's causing an obesity epidemic in our country. It's causing a diabetic epidemic in our country. It's causing immune issues all over the place. And they aren't able to see the spider web. They aren't able to see how everything being related to each other is causing all of these issues in their life, that all they have to do is raise a garden in their backyard and have a few chickens, and they could eliminate half the problem.
Right. I'm glad you touched on the food thing, because I recently just found out, and I've got a couple of upcoming shows, and I've got two scientists coming on, because I just learned this. I didn't know this. About 14, 15 years ago, the FDA approved for cattle, I believe, cattle and pig meat, and also milk or dairy products from cattle to be raised or taken from cloned animals.
Yes.
And strangely enough, there's this other study, and I don't know they're connected. I'm not saying that, so calm down, YouTube. Testosterone levels in men started to drop right about the same time that got rolled out mass scale. Okay. So I've got 2 different people coming on. One that wants to talk about how it's bad for us, and one that says that it's fine. So to be fair to the audience, I'm going to give the whole argument, right? Personal opinion, I think it's bad. I don't think that's a good idea to be monkeying around with the genetics of animals. I don't think that's a good idea. I think that's going to blow up in your face. Whether you're religious or not, I know this is a phrase that you've heard. Don't act like God.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's no way that ends well. So I'm assuming that the majority of what you're trying to do up there at Liberty Mountain Farm is pretty well organic. That's what you're kind of gunning for.
100% organic, 100% heirloom fruits and vegetables, 100% native breeds of the animals. Not genetically modified, not crossbred. We're going with pure heirloom breeds and species of everything. And that's, the genetic modification thing, there's a lot of science out there on both sides of it. I get it. And I'm glad that you're going to be exposing both sides of the issue, because I honestly, I've read tons about both on both sides of the argument. And the truth of the matter is, we just don't know. It hasn't been around long enough. It's only been basically one generation that we've been feeding this. So we can't see what the long-term effects are going to be on the human species. And it's kind of the same problem I have with the COVID vaccine, is the fact that it's the first RNA modified
RMNA.
been given to the human species. So we don't know what the real long-term effects are going to be. And it may be safe, it may not be safe. But why the hell are we taking chances with the future of our entire race? So
especially for something that, look, I'm not even gonna like play like this thing's not dangerous. I get it, but it's not smallpox. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I would understand if we were dealing with Ebola or smallpox and we had to rush something and then like hope for the best. Okay, maybe I could get that, but this is not that. And that confuses the crap out of me. And now they're talking about passports, so I don't even know about that. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I know where my head's on it. Bite me, but
if I went and got the vaccine, I would still burn that passport because I'm not showing my papers to anyone.
Nice. I tell people all the time, this is my outlook on it. If you want to go get it, you do you, man. If you don't want to go get it, you do you. But okay, this confuses me because this is one of the most dumb arguments I've ever heard, ever. And, I'll be 38 in 10 days. But this argument is the dumbest one I've ever heard in my entire life. And I've heard some pretty dumb arguments. But it's, if you don't get the COVID vaccine or a COVID passport to prove that you have it, you're just trying to put other people in danger. And I'm like, how? If you're vaccinated, what are you talking about? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, the vaccine doesn't. It's almost like you're making an argument that I got vaccinated but it doesn't do anything. But because you didn't, now I feel some kind of a way about that. How about bite me?
Yeah, and what are they going to do now with this new double mutation strain that came out of the UK that they don't even know if the vaccine's effective for? So
no, they literally came out and said, we don't actually think that it is.
Right. What are we going to, what the hell? Now you just sacrificed your life for absolutely nothing because it's not even the dominant strain anymore.
Yeah, I've been trying to get some people on to talk about that, but the problem is that they're all terrified to like give their opinion. You know what I mean? So they'll do it on like Signal or whatever, where they're like not going to get in trouble. But it's just it's very difficult to get experts to come on and talk about stuff if it goes against the norm right now.
Well, yeah, it threatens our entire livelihood. But I'll tell you right now, if they were agorists and went out and got themselves a self-sustaining farm, they wouldn't have to worry about their career anymore.
There you go, man. There it is. That's what it's about. So, like we were saying, that what people can do to put themselves in a better position, rather that be financial or whatever, just to pull themselves out of this economy that, it's not looking good long term. You had mentioned solar. I will say this, just for a lot of people, not everyone can afford solar. It's pretty expensive. And full disclosure, most people know this. I'm not a huge fan of solar. To me, it's not even a green tech, but that's only because I understand the energy field really well and what it takes to make these products and the long term. I just don't see it as, but if you can afford it, absolutely, sure. It's a good way to pull yourself out of the system.
Yeah, now, and I want to be clear on that because I want you to notice that when I was talking about energy, I didn't talk about green energy. I talk about providing your own energy. And that's
a very fair point.
Because there are a lot of technologies out there. If I could have my own micronuclear reactor, I absolutely would, because that's probably the greenest technology that we'll have out there.
Well, lithium, it turns out you cannot. Mark Schneider said it'll never happen. Yes. Just so you know.
Which is disappointing, but and I fully believe that I agree with him 100%. But if you think about it, a thorium reactor breaks down into completely non-radioactive materials. So nuclear should be the green tech of the future, because in a very, very small land area, we can provide enough nuclear energy to power the entire world and do it without having any harmful after effects. It creates water, for the sake.
Yeah. Yeah, like, oh, you have fresh water. Uh-oh.
Yeah, pure fresh water coming from a nuclear reaction. And it's the same with hydrogen fuel cells. I mean,
Yeah.
the technology is not quite there to make it energy efficient, but again, that's something else that we
But
could do.
nuclear is energy efficient for sure.
Yes. Oh,
They've
absolutely.
got that one down to an art, like to the point that the spent fuel, recycled fuel, is the way my understanding is, from the reactors we currently have. So when they pull the rods, when they pull the fuel cell, there's still fuel in it, but they can't use it in the way that system's set up. They have now new technology where they just send that fuel to this new reactor and it spins it up to, by the time you pull that rod out, it's a rock. You throw that thing on the ground, it doesn't even matter.
No longer radioactive.
Yeah, I'm going, what are we doing? Why are we arguing over all this nonsense? We have the tech. Let's just get to it. You know what I mean?
Well, and I'm saying right there, the government has kept that such a heavily regulated industry, and the barrier of entry is so high into that market that unless they are already involved and already got their regulatory commission license, then what's the point in spending $18 million to go get a license just so you can start to experiment with it?
Takes about 17 years.
17 years. Who
to
really
get from getting from the process of starting the licensing to actually having a functioning facility, about 17 to 18 years. We actually currently, I learned this the other day, we currently have a license that just recently got renewed from 1971.
Holy crap.
And they haven't even started construction on a project, but they renew the license every year in case they, something changes, they can go ahead and move forward. So yeah, so anyone out there, shameless plug here, watch the episode with Mark Schneider. I'm telling you, you're going to learn something that you didn't know about the safety and efficacy of nuclear. It is the future. And I think the Libertarian Party needs to adopt it and howl it to the moon that, look, guys, there is a green tech and it's safe and it's effective and it's super profitable for the private market. So let's get to it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
What we I don't know, man. Go ahead. Sorry. My apologies.
I would say what we're talking about, there's a lot of things that you can do, but, solar isn't really any worse than getting your electricity from a coal-fired power plant.
Well, basically the same.
Yes. So if green's your thing, sure, go with wind or go with whatever you've got available. Geothermal is another option, which is something else that we're going to have up there. But that's longer term because we're in rock and it takes a lot to drill through rock.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that they can be a significant upfront investment, but if you look at the long-term returns on it, I can tell you right now, we're going to, over the course of the 25-year lifespan of our solar package, we are going to be paying less for electricity than we did from paying our monthly utility bill. So even if you've got to get a loan for it, you are actually buying your electricity for yourself, and you'll have it paid off 5 years before you've got to start looking at replacing it. So if you're worried about the financial,
you can save money.
Yeah, you can absolutely save money. You can save money doing everything that Tori and I are doing. You can save money on your grocery bill. You can save money on our housing. We're going to wind up spending less than $10,000 for our shelter that's going to be fully air conditioned, fully heated, with all of the modern amenities. We're going to have a toilet, bathtub, kitchen sink, bathroom sink, stove. All
nice.
So that doesn't count the solar package. That doesn't count any utilities. That just counts the structure itself. But who can build a modern, insulated, safe, dry, clean structure for under $10,000 in the way the current economy works, the way the current market works? You really can't. So,
well, actually, apparently you really can. You just have to know what you're doing and do it correctly.
Correct. And that's the thing, is I was very blessed. I worked in construction. I built a lot of homes, so I knew a lot of the techniques and technology that we needed to have in order to be able to do this. And not everyone has that. However, we open our education center, I will be more than happy to sit down with you one-on-one and walk you through every step of the process. We will both do everything in our power to make sure that you are educated, empowered, and encouraged to do everything that we are doing yourself.
Right, and that's on your Patreon. They can like find some of that and then get in contact with you guys. You have a chat on there they can hit you up.
They can hit us up on our Facebook at any time, Liberty Mountain Farms,
Okay.
Facebook.com/Liberty Mountain Farms. And that's where right now you can contact us to ask us any questions that you may have. And if we don't have the answer, we know where to find it.
And then you have an Instagram as well, right?
Yes, we are also on Instagram. We're not as active on there. We are going to be more active on Patreon, and we're going to put a lot of this, the fundamental educational stuff on there, walking you through a lot of the processes. But even after that happens, if there's something that you want to see that we don't have, tell us, and we will make sure that we get it and put it on there as soon as we possibly can.
Or do you guys have a YouTube channel anyone can look at?
We do have a YouTube channel also. It's Liberty Mountain Farms. But again, we've been so busy building this house. We did this
slacking.
Yeah. So we are slacking a lot on our social media, and I fully admit that. But, you know, as soon as I get this floor milled and get it put into the house, we have got all the footage for it. We've got time lapse for everything that we've done. Nice. So it's absolutely going to voice over all of that, put it onto our Patreon, put some of it onto our Facebook, put it on our YouTube so that this is available to anyone. The only reason we have a Patreon, and I mean, we're not doing this to make money for ourselves, but it would be nice to be able to garner more resources to be able to do more. And if someone has the capability to come up and support us, please, I would encourage you, go over to our Patreon and support us. But right now you're going to find most of our content on Facebook. And whether you are a Patreon supporter or not, we are still available to you on our Facebook at all times to answer any questions you may have. And it's going to be that way from now until we're dead.
Right on. I don't use Normie Book because Mark Zuckerberg is a robot and he's trying to take over the world, and I don't like that. But no, I'm just kidding. I just don't like Normie Book. It just irritates me. But I will definitely hit your Patreon. Do you have tiers on your Patreon that people can hit to?
Yeah, I think we've even got something as low as like a $2 Patreon on there.
Oh man, that's like not even a coffee. You guys can hit that up. Come on, don't be a bunch of grifters. Come taking shit for free. Right on, man. So I like what you guys what you're doing there. What's the forward motion to where maybe someone doesn't want to join the Patreon or whatever, maybe they're not in that position, but maybe they can order something from you guys in the future? Where are we looking at as far as getting a website? People can maybe order some, I don't know, jam or whatever you guys are doing.
We're probably 4 to 5 months out from that. We are in the process. If you've been following us on Facebook, you've seen that we just got our first raised bed put up. We've got to get it filled with dirt. But our priority has been getting our shelter constructed so that we can be up there full time. I can wake up in the morning, walk out into my front yard and start building, doing. Right. So it's probably 4 to 5 months out before we start seeing any harvest from our the garden that we're still in the process of building. We have a few like signs and things that came from some of the offcuts from the milling, from the sawmill. So we made some signs that have got up on Etsy. Victoria makes jewelry. She's got a handful of those pieces up on Etsy that are finished. She's going to start doing another series this summer. She does her jewelry in releases. So as we find a particularly beautiful piece of wood that isn't suitable for us to build anything out of, she cuts it up and finds the most beautiful pieces and makes jewelry out of it. And she's getting ready to start doing some electroplating to make some even more unique pieces. We went and mined some crystals over in Hot Springs that she's going to incorporate.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So when we get the opportunity, she's going to be able to sit down in her little workshop that we've got set aside and put some more effort into that, and she'll create a new release that should be coming out in about 6 months.
Cool.
We're going to be doing craft wool That's actually a pretty decently sized market that generates a decent amount of income. So that's for after we get the sheep in, but I've still got to build a fence before I can even get them in.
So much work, man. So much work. Like,
when we get the market garden up, we're going to start a CSA for local delivery. So we've got about 15 revenue streams that we're looking at, and we're just going to evaluate which one's going to support us in the short term, get that up and running, and then migrate to the rest of them as we get the products developed.
Right on. And would you say that if anyone's looking to do this, that's their number one goal, is like figure out your easiest revenue stream that you can accomplish and just put your effort into that right quick, and then that way you can expand on your efforts as you move forward? Is that the best way to handle this, you think?
Yeah, but I'm going to add a caveat to that. The quickest and easiest revenue stream that you enjoy, because there's no purpose to doing
no, I got that. Makes sense.
Yeah. So
yeah, because if it's something you're just doing for work, you're going to be like annoyed.
Right. You might as well just keep on with your 9 to 5 in the city and working for somebody else, because you're not going to get any more satisfaction out of life that way. This isn't something you're going to get rich at. This isn't something create generational wealth doing. However, by the time we're done, we're going to have a farm that's going to be fully operating and be worth a significant amount of money for my children, her children, our children, something that they will be able to step into and go forward and have a fulfilling life where they are able to be healthy and self-sustaining. They can be agorist if they wish.
Yeah. So, or they can sell it.
Or they can. That would break my heart, but I'll be dead, so it probably won't matter.
It won't break your heart because you'll be dead and you won't care. You'll be like, whatever. I've never went to that. Like, people are like, oh, well, you know. Well, I can't really say that. The family farm that I currently own has been in my family 200 years, and I just keep it. And I'm like, and I keep it because they spent 2 centuries like growing it, building it, whatever. Rex, this has been awesome. We're gonna definitely have to have you come back on once you're up and operational. You got your website and you're hawking your wares. So I really appreciate you coming on. You got any final thoughts or final grift? Throw it out there, man.
No, man, I just want to say it doesn't matter. And I said this earlier in the podcast, but I want to reinforce this idea that you do not have to go full tilt. Anything that you can do, even if it's just a small supplemental victory garden in your backyard, is going to enhance your life in ways that you can't even possibly imagine right now. The satisfaction that you're going to get out of doing something for yourself that you get to see the rewards of and that you get to enjoy and share the rewards of is going to be fulfilling in a way that you can't possibly imagine right now. So I'm going to encourage you, even if you don't come through us, go through somebody, find out just the most basic things you need to do and start experimenting, because it is worth it. I promise you, anything that you choose to do because you want to do it is worth it. So keep pushing, keep enjoying your liberty.
And I would add one thing to that argument, and that is that you don't even need a backyard. You can have a garden in your house.
That's right.
There are ways to do it. You can totally get some planters. You can grow some tomatoes. You grow some vegetables, herbs. All of this is possible. You just need a couple of feet, and you can grow some stuff and do it on your own and kind of take a little power away from not only the government, but the corporations. We didn't talk about COVID passports. That's going to be next time. Rex, I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for doing this with us.
Absolutely, Austin. It's a pleasure to be here. I always come and I love talking about liberty with anybody that wants to talk about it.
I do too, but I think the only way to really do it now is like start talking about the end and not what's going on, because what's going on now is getting pretty scary. So we got to make sure that we're ready for what comes next, you know. And that's why I wanted to talk to you again. So I appreciate it, Rex, man.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.